Yeah, that'll be the big news. Um,
Let
of
them
course,
fight.
of course she is. Of course she is. We knew she was going to do that.
Yep.
Uh, hey everyone, I'm with Kurt Bardella. Kurt Bardella is the editor of the Watchdog. Subscribe to Kurt. Kurt, I'm going to give him a compliment, even though it sounds like a diss. It's like the smart Forrest Gump of U.S. politics. He just he just like finds a way to be in all these interesting places. Sometimes he's at Breitbart, then he leaves MAGA, then he goes to the Democrats, then he consults, then he goes to News Nation, then he's at a country music stop, and then he's in DC again. He actually was part of the Swalwell campaign, or helping him. He quit a month ago, so we'll get some insider juice from him about the implosion of the Swalwell campaign, the implosion of the Tony Gonzales campaign, whether or not there's a coming reckoning. And speaking about reckoning and accountability, people want answers. People want the truth about the Epstein files. So some big news we'll start off with right now is Pam Bondi. Remember Pam Bondi, the world's smallest violin for Pam Bondi. Kurt, can you please tell everyone what Pam Bondi, our former attorney general, was supposed to do today?
Today, April 14th, at this exact time, she's supposed to be giving a deposition to the House Oversight Committee. A bipartisan subpoena was issued. This is one of the few times you'll actually see Republicans and Democrats agreeing on something. They subpoenaed her to testify behind closed doors about the Epstein files investigation, the lack of clarity and transparency from the Justice Department to comply with the act passed by Congress that mandated they turn over the Epstein files. She, for reasons past human understanding, decided not to participate in that deposition. She's getting cover from the acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, making the absolute ludicrous argument that, well, since she's not Attorney General anymore, the subpoena is no longer valid. Let me tell you something. Someone who worked at the Oversight Committee, I know how these things work. The subpoena said Pam Bondi. It
That's right.
didn't say Attorney General, no name. It said Pam Bondi. And let's just remember that it wasn't that long ago that the Republicans at this committee threatened to hold former, and I stress former, President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in criminal contempt of Congress if they refuse to show up and honor their subpoena to conduct the closed door deposition. That deposition happened. The Clintons testified for like 9 hours. Why there's a different standard right now for Pam Bondi than the Clintons is beyond. I mean, we can guess why that is, but this is going to all come to a head. Ranking member Robert Garcia has already said he intends to initiate contempt proceedings, a contempt vote, if Bondi refuses to give a date of when she will actually honor that subpoena.
Let's listen to his statement that he just released. Pam Bondi is evading a lawful congressional subpoena by failing to appear before the Oversight Committee for a deposition about the Epstein files and the White House cover up. This subpoena applies to her regardless of her title. She must appear before the committee. And if she continues to ignore the law, Oversight Democrats will move forward with contempt proceedings immediately. We will fight until there's true accountability and justice. I think they should just go ahead and do it by the end of the day, Kurt.
I think they should too. But now here's the thing, and this really illustrates the crack in the check and balance system we have between Congress and the executive branch. Contempt is symbolic because who enforces contempt? The Justice
There
Department.
you go.
Very unlikely that Mr. Blanche is going to actually enforce the criminal contempt citation that would be approved by Congress. So there needs to be a reckoning here. Uh, if and when Democrats take back Congress, they need to start changing the rules a little bit so that they have the mechanism to independently of the executive branch enforce their subpoenas. There's something called inherent contempt, which hasn't been invoked in like a century and a half now, but they should exercise it because it would allow them to instruct the sergeant of arms to detain anyone who is refusing to comply with a congressional subpoena and house them in the Capitol jail, which technically does exist in the basement of the Capitol. We need stuff like that to start coming back because it's very clear this lawless, reckless administration that doesn't believe in checks and balances will not adhere to any subpoena issued by Congress, by Democrats. So I think that they need to consider, if they take back power, invoking inherent contempt and maybe hire someone like former officer Michael Fanone to be the new sergeant of arms of the Capitol to help them enforce these things.
No, absolutely right. And because what Republicans are saying is "F you, make me." F you,
Hmm.
make me. I know you're not. I know you're weak. I know you're a pussy. I know you're spineless. I
That's
know
right.
you're Democrats. I know you're going to enforce anything. I know you're afraid. I know that if you do it, we're going to turn around and do it to you. So F you. you punk ass bitch. This is how they, I'm just talking like how they talk, right? Like, this is how they think. You're a punk ass bitch. You're a pussy. You're weak.
Right.
You're a cuck. You're a beta. We're the
Yep.
real men. You suck. We're going to kill you. Shut your mouth. We're not going to do anything. I'm going to go make money and I'm going to be a lobbyist for Qatar again. Peace out. What are you going to do?
Well, and that's why the Democrats' mantra really needs to be FAFO, fuck around and find out. We'll
Yes.
show you what we'll do. That they need to be that level of bold, fearless, unapologetic about flexing their power, because it is a righteous crusade to get answers, to get the truth, to expose the totality of corruption, waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement that is systemic throughout the Trump administration.
So look, we give credit where credit is due. The fact that they actually issued that statement, well done, Garcia. The fact that they're threatening with contempt, well done. The fact that they're probably going to hold her in contempt. But for those who are joining us, this contempt citation doesn't have teeth. But there actually are these arcane, if you will, rules within the system that allow it to have teeth. You just need someone to trigger it. The reason why, and I think this is all going to connect to the Swalwells and the Gonzales,
Mhm.
the reason is it's a big club. It's a big club, and you always hear Democrat and Democratic leadership say, well, Kurt, if we do it, they could do it to us. And
Yeah.
talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzales are the poster child children for what really is a systemic problem amongst the entire Congress. I worked on Capitol Hill for a really long time, going back to 2006, and I can tell you, and it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, every year, Capitol Hill is inundated with an entire new class of young people out of college taking the lower level staff assistant, legislative correspondent type jobs. They are young, they are impressionable, they are ambitious, they are excited to be in the nation's capital. They are there for the right reasons. They have not yet been jaded by the world the way that we have. Um, and every year, especially especially men, frankly, uh, hunt these younger people. They offer mentorship and access and career advancement. And all you have to do is when they say, hey, you want to get a drink after work? Hey, you want to grab a bite to eat in between events? Hey, that was a fun time. Let's keep the party going. Um, to expect a 22-year-old out of college who's never worked a real professional job in her life to have the wherewithal and the ability to say no to the congressman or the chief of staff or the person in power is an unreasonable thing to expect of somebody that young and that impressionable. And the reality is there are no systems in place on Capitol Hill to police that. They police themselves. That's part of the problem. Congress is fundamentally unqualified to investigate itself, which is what the process is right now. What actually happens is if the girl says, no, no, thanks, I'm good, the congressman then goes later on or the next day to a chief of staff or a supervisor and says, I don't really feel comfortable with Stephanie staffing me one on one. Oh, she's a little difficult to work with. She's tough to manage. And all of a sudden, within a day, the rumor spreads that, oh, don't hire Stephanie. She's really tough to work with. She's really difficult.
That's
There's
what, by
no
the way,
one.
Weinstein. That's what Harvey Weinstein did with actresses who rebuffed.
Yes,
He did that with
yes,
Mira Sorvino and Ashley Judd,
that's
and it
right,
hurt their career. And he went around and told Peter Jackson, you don't want to cast them; they're bad. And so he
yeah,
cast someone else instead. And he said, I had no idea at that time. I just trusted Harvey Weinstein because,
right.
and I heard this rumor, and they said it was difficult. I didn't have too much on my plate making Lord of the Rings, so I went with Kate Blanchett instead.
Right, because people will oftentimes take the path of least resistance because why deal with the headache? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And there's no independent, entity that people can go to who work there to lodge these kind of complaints without being exposed professionally, without being their reputation being run into the ground and their advancement halting. In any other corporate private sector environment, when an accusation is made, a third party law firm is hired to investigate to avoid the self policing element that just isn't credible and isn't fair to the victims. And so, just like federal agencies have inspectors general, whose job it is, who is outside the chain of command to investigate wrongdoing, Congress needs their own IG, in my opinion, to be able to look at this stuff, because I can tell you, it's not just one or two congressmen. It's not just three or four bad apples. Like it is systemic. Harassment happens every day on Capitol Hill. Older men prey on younger women, and even if it doesn't cross the boundary of what might be considered criminal, it's still, we have got to start holding our elected officials to a higher standard than did they break the law. We're supposed to be better than that. These people ask for your trust to make decisions on your behalf about your children's education, your children's safety, your children's health care. They should be held to the highest possible standard. And the deterioration of those standards during this era of Trump in this last decade is absolutely disgusting, because these people get away with shit that we would never tolerate in our homes, in our own workplaces, in our schools, anywhere else. But somehow in Congress and on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C., it's just that, well, that's just how it works.
Well, but you know what? Trump is the most egregious manifestation of this existing systemic problem, right? And what we're seeing is that this is a problem that exists across both sides of the aisle. It's what happens when there's power and the power is unchecked. And overwhelmingly, it's men using and abusing that power. To quote George Carlin, it's a big club. Swalwell
Yeah.
belongs to the club. He's a Democrat. Gonzalez belongs to the club. He's a Republican. And this keeps happening. And it goes back to even the lack of enforcement. And the reason why there's lack of enforcement, or the lack of censoring of Randy Fine and Tommy Tuberville
Hmm.
and friggin' Andy Ogles, who said the most heinous genocidal Islamophobic comments, is, well, if we censure them, they'll censure us. And if we enforce this contempt, they'll enforce that contempt. If we dig deeper into their sexual harassment, they'll dig deeper into our sexual harassment.
Right.
Which is why, Kurt, I believe there's a mood change, especially what you see. Uh, Hungary is in the United States of America, but you see patterns. So you saw the pattern with Brexit. Brexit happens, and then Trump.
Hmm.
You see the pattern with Orban, right? Orban falls. I think there's a pattern here where if you're seeing the righteous rage of people, right? You're seeing Sam, what's the guy's name? The AI guy, Sam Altman.
Altman.
Sam Altman's house gets firebombed, like the gate gets firebombed, right? You're
They had a
seeing,
Molotov cocktail.
yeah, you see Luigi Mangione, who's very popular. You see that factory worker filming himself burning down the paper factory and saying, you just had to pay us. You're seeing that story that came out of the Oregon Amazon factory worker dropped dead,
Hmm.
and then the manager literally says, folks, keep working around the dead body, right?
Yeah.
This is not sustainable. And then you see the Epstein files. I think the Epstein files are the Rosetta Stone. People are like, aha, we knew it. It's a
Hmm.
big club, it's
Yeah.
bipartisan. These people rape our girls, they rape the system, they get away with it, we're done. And I think now we're in a really interesting situation, because Swalwell is one of those people where, there were people who said, I heard about this and I heard about that. And then we found out from Politico, some people were still willing in the Democratic Party to push him forward. But then
Right.
one story became too much. Now, you were part of the Swalwell campaign, you were helping with the social media team. What did you know? When did you know it? What did you hear?
Yeah, I've been working with Eric, going back to, right after the first impeachment of Donald Trump, that he was one of those impeachment managers. And it's really disheartening when you actually do believe in someone, and in the fight that they're fighting. And I was, someone told me this, I think it was yesterday. I was talking to someone who worked for him at a very high level for more than a decade. And she told me one of the things that Eric would make you promise if you worked for him was never lie. Never lie to me, never lie for me, never lie about me. That was kind of an internal cultural mantra that he was just devout about. And when someone expresses that, and then you turn around and see what has happened, it's jarring. It is disheartening, it is disappointing, it is a betrayal. I remember my first day on Capitol Hill was July 5th, 2006, and I came to DC by way of a special election to replace a congressman who had gone to jail for corruption, a guy named Duke Cunningham. And I'll never forget walking in the Rayburn office and seeing the staff, his former staff, literally handing over the keys to us, and realizing, man, like our livelihoods are so closely tied to these members that we put that trust in, that our professional livelihood rises and falls as their fortunes rise and falls. When I look at someone like Eric, who had served in Congress, had fought these fights against Donald Trump, who was asking for the trust to run the largest state in the union, the fifth largest economy in the world, the largest concentration of Democrats in the United States of America in California. And for him to do that and to betray in this way is it's really unfathomable. I mean, it's like there's two of them. There's this Eric that many of us knew, believed in, supported, and then there's someone, and then there's this other guy who is doing unthinkable things. I wish I had any inkling along the way that he was capable of this. I would have been the very first to say, like, as I've shown, I don't have a problem leaving things or people if I think it's going wrong. I used to be a Republican, and I left that party in early 2016 before Trump was even the nominee, when everyone was on the Jeb Bush train. I wish I had known, and someone I was talking to this morning expressed that the guilt of, how could I not have known? How could I not have seen it? How could all of this been going on? And people are saying now, oh, it was an open secret.
Right.
And I'm thinking, and I think to myself, well, first of all, what the fuck? Like, if that's the case, then everyone failed on a systemic level, because this shit should not be allowed to be an open secret. It should be
That's what
exposed
I'm
and
saying,
dealt
Kurt.
with.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like when people say, "Well, everyone knew about it," I'm like, "I didn't know about it."
I
And
had
this
no fucking clue. And if I had, I would have been the first to call his ass out for it.
Well, that's how the Weinsteins after it happens, everyone goes, everyone knew. I'm like, I didn't know.
Right.
Epstein, everyone knew. P Diddy, everyone knew. And it's a culture, to be fair, on the totem pole, right? There are people who know, but they realize if I say anything, I'm screwed. They
Right.
realize my career's over. They realize, oh my God, my physical health, my literal actual safety could be at risk. Then there's people who are complicit,
Yes.
who then there are people who know but choose not to know more. And they're like,
Right.
you know what, la 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 la, innocent till proven guilty. I kind of know, but la 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 la, plausible deniability. And then there's
Yeah.
people who are like, all right, I met this guy, I did work with him. I had no effing idea. So there's different layers to this, folks. I realize, but the
Yeah.
system, it's we're talking about is a system of complicity that is happening. And now that people are saying, well, Tony and Eric, we knew about it. I'm like, well, this is why people are so friggin' pissed off about the Epstein
Yeah.
scandal, right? Because it
Yeah.
seems like everyone was raping everyone with
Right.
impunity, and they're all partying with each other. But what about the rest of us? And so this is why there's, I think, a righteous rage here. And so I remember, folks, like just a couple of weeks ago. Full disclosure, I've shared this story before. I tweeted something. I retweeted something where people made some allegations about Eric. And this wasn't about sexual, but this was about like him taking money from APEC and this and that. So then
Mm-hmm.
I get Eric Swalwell literally emailing me, direct messaging me, like,
Yeah.
it's a lie. Here's my cell phone number. And I never took him up on it. Maybe I should have 2 weeks ago. But then I also wanted to interview him. So I said, instead of calling him up directly, let me interview him. So I went to Kurt. Kurt connected me.
Hmm.
This was 2 weeks ago. Kurt
Yep.
connected me with Eric's guy, and we were supposed to set up a phone call. And now this happened. When did you, Kurt, leave the Swalwell team?
So I was helping with social media and connecting things. Like I said, 2 weeks ago. I mean, it really. Uh, I wasn't paid. I should be really clear about that. I haven't been working for him in a paid capacity in more than a couple of years now. But again, I believed in his campaign for governor. I believed in his message. I saw the things that were going on with Trump and Cash Patel and the Justice Department targeting him, which, by the way, still did happen, because that's what they do over there. I was happy to support and help and do what I could to try to get him across the finish line in a very crowded primary. I was really concerned about the idea that, frankly, two Republicans will end up advancing in the runoff, and Democrats will be completely frozen out. Um, and so I'm like almost everybody else in the situation, where I didn't know until it came out. And one of the people that came forward as a public accusers, an activist consultant, Ali Samarco, and I know Ali and her husband Adam
Yep.
really well, and that made it really real for me. And I was talking to them yesterday afternoon, and I basically almost apologized for just not knowing. And Ali, being very gracious and generous, just said, it's like, I know everyone's saying everyone knew and it was an open secret and all this, but like, so many of us didn't. Because
Yeah.
she was like all of us. She believed in him. She supported him. She advocated for him. She amplified him. So did Adam. And then for this to go down this way is again, it's jarring. It really does make you look back and go, did I miss something? Because it makes you doubt your own sense of reality and your own sanity to a certain level, and your political compass and acumen. But I just think that people with this pathology who do these things, who act this way in the dead of night when they're sliding into someone's DMs at 1 in the morning,
Young
um,
girls.
uh, yeah, like there is a duplicity to the life that they are living, and a pathology that I think is unhealthy, and it's a borderline personality disorder at this point to me. When I'm seeing the things that are coming out, even at this moment, within the last hour, there's another accuser has come forward, held a press conference in LA, saying that she believes that this is her saying this, that he drugged her, and it's like, man, that is dark shit right there.
Yeah, that and it's a pattern, right? It's a pattern of men preying on women, abusing their power, and realizing, oh, we can get away with it. And it's a big club. And like I told people yesterday, and you know this better than I do, if someone suspends their campaign, there's a there, folks.
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yes.
don't suspend your campaign if there ain't no there.
Especially when you're the front runner.
Yeah, especially when you're the front runner and you don't resign from Congress if there's no there. There's also some names. Okay, some names. This is all speculation. We're telling you
Yes.
what's out there. But some people are saying he ain't the only one, and some folks are saying he was very close to. Not some, we all know his best friend was Ruben Gallego, and some
Right.
people want to dig into specifically Republicans. They want to dig into Ruben Gallego. Now, let me put it this way: Ruben Gallego is a senator from Arizona.
Mhm.
He threw his hat in the ring, kind of testing the presidential waters. Arizona's a
Mhm.
swing state. The fact that he won was a big win for Democrats. But let's just say, all hypothetical, that maybe this drags Gallego in there, right? And you're a Democrat, and they're like, "Listen, we have a chance to get the Senate. We might actually get 51 if Gallego steps down. If it's a hypothetical, yada yada,
Mhm.
if indeed some of these allegations are proven true and then he was complicit, if speculation, hypothetical. um I'm just saying, and talk to us about the Democrats, because I know some Democrats will be like, well, we need that Senate seat.
The minute that we start doing that, rationalizing bad behavior, like you're no better than the Republicans who thought they could maybe hold their stomach and get Matt Gaetz in as Attorney General. Some things have got to be bigger than partisanship, and bigger than the acquisition or holding on to power, because what's lost if we do the ends justify the means game is we lose our identity. We lose our just ability to look at our own kids, I think, and talk to them about right or wrong. If Democrats want to become the Republican Party, the fastest way to do that is to abandon principles, and embrace a complete and justify the means type of mentality. And if you're willing to excuse the abuse and mistreatment of young, just out of college, teenagers entering the workforce, um, I just think there's such bad juju there, man. I just think so much bad shit can happen to you that it's not worth it. It's not worth selling your soul over. I could be there's an alternate universe right now where I stayed a Republican, stayed on the Trump train, got my own show on Fox News, making millions of dollars, gaslighting the American people, living my best life. Like, not worth selling my soul, not worth not being able to look my kids in the eye and telling them what I think is right or wrong. Ultimately, how for me, and I'll never forget it, the moment that I made the decision to leave. I was in the shower. It was like 12:30 in the afternoon, and I just said, "What the fuck am I doing?" I hopped out of the shower, wrapped a towel around me, went to my desk, sent like a 2 sentence email to Steve Bannon just saying, "Effective immediately, I can no longer represent you or Breitbart. Goodbye." Boom. That was it. And I felt an enormous weight lifted from my shoulders. Um, and while it was a professionally stupid decision, I nuked my entire professional life. It's not
You
like
make a
back
lot
then.
more money, Kurt. You could have been doing
Yes,
really well. You
it's
could
not
have
like
had
back
hefty money.
then. Exactly, and it's not like back then. By the way, Democrats were like warming to embrace me. Right? It's not like there was no Never Trump group. It didn't exist yet, folks. I was on an island by myself, and I had just nuked myself with the most powerful people in the Republican Party who were out to get me at that point. I'm like, really stupid decision, but I can sleep at night knowing that I did it. I think that's the same thing with this kind of stuff. If you get wind of bad behavior and abuse of power, and anything that hints on sexual harassment or sexual assault, they got to go. Period. I don't give a shit if they're an R or a D. They got to go. That's got to be the default position of all of us, because some things matter more than politics, and this should be one of them. This is a no brainer.
Okay, but some the Democrats will say, listen, it's really rich for Republicans to scold us and lecture us about Eric Swalwell when they are firmly living within the anus of a rapist who is covering up Epstein and the pedophiles. So,
Yes.
so tit for tat, baby.
Well, they're right. Like, and I've said this, I said this publicly. If you have been silent about Donald Trump, if you have been silent about any Republican along the way who has been accused of similar conduct, I don't give two fucks what you think about Eric Swalwell or anyone else. Go fuck off, because you don't have the right to have that opinion if you won't police your own selves. It's the hypocrisy that drives me nuts. But the response to that isn't, well, we're not going to hold our people accountable either. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because one of us has got to be the party of actual justice. One of us has got to be the party that means that when we say believe survivors, get justice for victims, that means holding those who perpetrated, the assault accountable. We cannot be the party that goes, well, you did it, so we're going to do it too, because then no one stands for anything, and we'll just rot from within.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I come out and at that end as well because if you look at the Democratic brand's popularity rating, it's lower than Donald Trump, and Donald Trump
Mhm.
is at Donald Trump's favorability rating, folks, has just sunk underneath Richard Nixon post Watergate. That's how unpopular he is, and the Democratic brand is even more unpopular than that. So sure, you win, you get that seat, might get that Senate seat, but what are you doing in the long term, and what are you telling people? What are you telling American kids? It's a rot in the system, which is why I think it's a systemic problem, folks. That's why I think if you just focus on Swalwell, Gonzales, Donald Trump, Weinstein, P. Diddy, I think that's not enough. I think that's just scratching the surface. This is a
Yes.
systemic problem. It's a systemic rot. And we have to cull the system. We have to
Yes.
transform the system. We have to get rid of these people, which is why Jeffrey Epstein and the billionaire class, what were they most afraid of? What we know from the emails, Me Too, because Me
Yes.
Too was this one brief moment, Kurt, of like minor accountability that maybe, just
Yeah.
maybe, like, hey, you just can't go raping and harassing women. And they got so unmoored by this, including Jeffrey Epstein, they're like, let's just bring down democracy all around the world.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it's almost as if what we saw on January 6th, it almost feels like, well, that was really just a cover to try to make sure that the truth about, like, the Epstein files and everyone associated with it didn't come out. They will absolutely let's just sink the ship so that way no one knows anything. They have no clearly, if you are capable of abusing underage minors,
Yep.
like, you are capable of any type of depravity, and you have no moral compass, and you're willing to do anything to keep that secret. So it's not really much of a stretch to assume that, yeah, part of the architects of the deliberate sabotage of our democratic process is to ensure that their secrets stay secret. Like, yeah, these people are capable of it. They're raping children, for Christ's sake.
And you remember Madison Cawthorn, right? Um,
Yeah.
Deep cut, for those who remember, he was the rising right wing freak who also was in the wheelchair. All the horrific
Hmm.
things he said was perfectly fine. The racist stuff he said, the misogynist stuff he said, the promotion of right wing militia groups, the promotion of January 6th, all that was fine. But if you recall, Kurt, he comes out and says, yeah, man, Congress is wild. I got invited to like an orgy where they do like
Hmm.
cocaine, and I said, hell no. And and that's what, can you tell people what happened as a result of him making that admission?
Well, I mean, first of all, you don't get hero points
Yeah, no hero
for
points, but
for after the fact saying, I got invited to these shady things and I said no. It's like, okay, but who invited you? I mean, like, that's like that's the first thing I think of. Kaufman, of course, ended up getting chased out of Congress. Befalling his own scandals and his own inappropriate conduct surfacing coming. I saw a tweet from him. It might have been yesterday,
I saw it too.
and
Tell him.
yeah. Yeah, and I forgot who it was. One of them, one of the Pod Save guys, who just literally wrote, "You might want to sit this one out."
It was a Trumper.
Um, was it a Trumper then?
Yeah.
God, I mean, sometimes the internet, as awful as it is, has moments where you're like, yes, you are all of us right now.
Yeah, so I mean,
Um,
that it just shows you, right? Because it's a big club. So Cawthorn comes out and says, yeah, it was a Republican who apparently invited him. He said like elder
yeah, that's right.
Republicans
That's
were
right.
doing these orgies and cocaine stuff. And then, folks, bye bye Madison Cawthorn. They're like, peace out.
Peace
You
out.
First rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about the cocaine orgies at Fight Club. And then Cawthorn comes out yesterday and says, "Told you so." And then another Republican says, "You better keep your mouth shut, bro, because we got stuff on you." So it's a systemic problem. And I feel like, Kurt, if you
Mhm.
if you see how where the wind is blowing right now, especially what's happening in Hungary, especially what you're seeing, like I said,
Yes.
Altman, the rage against the oligarchy, I think people are fed up, man. I think this is like the same old, which is what the DNC wants and which is what Trump wants. I don't think it's going to hold. And when people think that Gavin Newsom is inevitable, I remember Hillary Clinton was inevitable in 2007 until she wasn't. I remember
Yeah.
Cuomo was inevitable last April until he wasn't. I remember Orban was inevitable, and then within 2 years, Peter Magyar said, "Nope, you're not."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I don't believe in anyone who says that they are inevitable. And I certainly don't believe the punditry class that says this is inevitable, who has called everything wrong for the better part of a decade now. Um, I just don't believe that anything we're talking about right now is going to be what we're going to be talking about per se 2 years from now. Like, I mean, that's an eternity. If you would have said 2 years ago, hey, Wash, 2 years from now, we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about America's war with Iran. Even like, what? Mm,
Trump isn't
Two,
that stupid. He is.
exactly. Exactly. So, I just think that Democrats, more than anything, they have this moment right now where the stars have aligned. You have a historically unpopular president, a MAGA brand that is just going south. Um, the American people are they want to be with you. You just got to give them an excuse to. Uh, and I always say never underestimate Democrats' ability to fuck it up though,
Yeah,
because that's we like they fall into success by accident sometimes, and they learn the wrong lessons from perceived success. The Democratic Party brand is a disaster right now. The infrastructure of the Democratic Party is actually in shambles.
yeah,
They said that they would do this great autopsy about what went wrong in 2024, and then they decided to bury it. Right, like this is who's running the Democratic Party today in 2026. I believe that 2028 is going to be the fight for our lives. I think that if we take back Congress in 2026, what you will see from Donald Trump will be the most unhinged, batshit level, because he will be grasping at his last ounce of power. He will not go quietly. January 6th is now the starting point. It's not
yeah,
the end, it's
yeah,
where we started Trump 2.0. And, if his pathology plays out the way that I expect it to, he is going to lash out in the most insane ways if he loses Congress, and tries to hold on to power heading into 2028. The one thing that we know about Donald Trump, he cannot stand not being the center of attention. So he will be doing things left and right to try to be the center of attention, as some Republicans try to jockey to replace him, and as Democrats obviously have their primary situation with 50,000 people who are going to be running. All the while, Donald Trump will be coming up with ways while sitting on his golden toilet in the White House, eating his, chicken nuggets, think about how can I get your attention today? I mean, again, this is a guy who just because he wanted attention decided to pick a fight with the Pope.
right. And just to distract from the fact that he had a temper tantrum because his boy Orban lost, because he's losing when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, because of his favorability ratings, and then so he got pissed off at the American Pope for not bending the knee, and then he posted a photo of himself as, oh, sorry, a Red Cross doctor or nurse, as one does, with light emanating from his hand. And like the parademon flying behind him. I think you're right. I don't think he's leaving legally and peacefully, Kurt. I trust the evidence of my eyes and ears. This is a man who incited a violent insurrection. Pardon the insurrectionists, has talked about the SAVE Act, has unleashed the FBI to raid the Fulton County offices,
Mhm.
is selling 2028 merch. What more do y'all need to see? It's
Is
very
remodeling his house? Does he look like he's leaving anytime
yeah.
soon?
Yeah, does it? No, he is not leaving. And it's hilarious when people say, "You're suffering from TDS." They said that to me in 2019. I'm like, Donald Trump is not going to leave. And then, like, okay, you were right. But why are you still wrong? Not you, Kurt, but the
Mhm.
establishment. He is not leaving. And then he saw that Orban just fell. He sees what's happening against Netanyahu. What?
Yep.
Why does anyone think this man's leaving? Especially when he keeps repeatedly saying, and also it's not just him, but Bannon and others, if the Democrats win, oh my God, they're going to impeach us and we're going to go to jail. That does not sound like an innocent man. So if you have committed crimes and you're openly kind of admitting to committing crimes and you're covering up all these sins in the Epstein files, why would you ever voluntarily give up power, Kurt?
Yeah. I mean, history has taught us that People with autocratic tendencies and impulses do not surrender power voluntarily. Um, and they certainly don't do it peacefully. And again, the last time Trump was confronted with the idea of losing power, he fomented an insurrection, a violent insurrection, and called for, supported the people that wanted to hang his vice president because his vice president wouldn't support said insurrection. Like that's how crazy it got. And has spent every waking minute since then trying to rewrite history and gaslight the American people to believing that what we saw with our eyes and ears on January 6th didn't actually happen.
Yeah, that's literally spent the last 5.5 years doing that, folks. Let me ask you a final question, Kurt. Many people say they get angry at me because I bring up, I think, very astute and apt critiques of the DNC, but then I get the Blue Anon. I don't know if Blue Anon comes after you, but then Blue Anon comes after me and says, "What do you want them to do? They have no power. What do you want them to do?" Meh. Okay, Democrats don't have the power. They don't have the Supreme Court. They don't have the House. They don't have the Senate. They don't have the presidency. Should they just lay down and die?
No, because what you do have is a microphone and a mouth and a brain, presumably, so that you can articulate a message, a coherent message, and hold Donald Trump and his ilk accountable. I mean, it's not rocket science how to actually do this, but it does start with being honest about your shortcomings. It starts with being honest about your party and the things that aren't working. And again, if your first instinct and impulse is to suppress the report that you commission that actually tells you what went wrong, and not share that publicly, it's like, okay, well, historically speaking, people who hide from the truth and hide the facts, not awesome, not great. How are we supposed to trust that you're going to get it right this time if you're not willing to be honest about what went wrong last time?
Especially when you promised your base you would release the autopsy.
Yes. Yeah, it's a
Uh,
terrible look, and
and
it doesn't inspire confidence in leadership. I'll say
Yeah,
that.
it is not. And folks, Axios, I think it was last month, there was a leak that the one of the reasons why what was in the autopsy is what I kept saying, and people thought I was crazy, is one of the main reasons, not the only reason, why so many Democrats stayed at home. 18 million Democrats who voted for Biden stayed at home in 2024 was
Mhm.
because, wait for it, they were pissed off about our complicity in an ongoing genocide. And then the autopsy reveals the YouGov poll that says one of the main reasons is that people, not just Palestinians, Arabs, and Muslims, this is a Gaza generation. This is global. People have seen a genocide stream to their phones. Something about genocide, folks. People don't like it. And so the autopsy shows that one of the reasons why Kamala lost was because of the genocide and people's continued anger over the DNC support of AIPAC and Netanyahu. And so instead of releasing that information, they're like, nah, let's bury it because we're winning. And it goes back to to that point, right? They're only winning because Trump is doing so bad. So they
Right.
think, Bert, they can the James Carville. They're following the James Carville strategy of playing possum, which
Hmm.
is Trump is doing bad, let him f up, we'll win. My take
Yeah.
on this is, suppose that works. So far, it's working. Suppose we have free and fair elections. I don't think we will, but let's just say inshallah. And suppose you roll into power that way, Kurt. You give me the next 4 years. Suppose it's 2028. We have no Project 2028. We have no policy agenda. We have no promises by the DNC. They still support APEC. They still support AI. They still support crypto. They still support
Hmm.
forever wars. Billionaires are part of the big tent. They still take money from all these companies. They punch to the left. They embrace the right. There's no accountability, but they have power. Now you give me 2028 to 2032. What's going to happen?
Yeah, we're gonna lose. Um, this is the problem again, where I say that sometimes Democrats learn the wrong message from success. If we take back Congress in the midterms, it's not because the Democrat Party is so awesome and that we kick ass and everyone loves us. It's gonna be because that is how fed up and is a mandate on Donald Trump more than anything, actually. And we do like this. Republicans are really great at messaging, and whether it's you know project 2020, was it 2020, was it project 2025,
Yeah, it seems like
or
every day is 10 years and dog years now.
right, or back in the 90s when they had the contract for America, there were really people who voted for Republicans knew why they were voting for them and what they would get, whether you agree with it or not. Like, they don't make it a secret. Democrats don't really do that. We say that we're going to stop Trump or we're going to hold him accountable or investigate him. Okay, but being against Trump isn't enough. You have to give people a reason to be excited to vote for you. And whether that's because it could be anything. We're gonna reform education. We're gonna expand healthcare, make it more affordable. We're going to make childcare affordable in this country.
Nothing, Kurt. There's nothing.
Uh, and it's like I don't hear a consistent message from Democrats about what we will do with power when we have it, and what we will do to make your lives better, and make your family's life better, and make your kids' lives better. Like, that's what I want to hear more from Democrats. And I get it. It's hard. It's hard to cut through the noise, to cut through the clutter, to cut through Donald Trump, fighting the Pope, cutting through sexual harassment claims and all that. But like, on some level, Democrats have got to figure out how they can create a way to communicate effectively every day about what they will do for people, not just stop Donald Trump.
What is your policy agenda? What do you stand for? What are you fighting for? And I have no idea in the year is 2026, and that's not good. Finally, Martin Vasquez is convinced that you're undercover Republican and a supporter of Trump.
Oh
Kurt,
my
your response.
God. Martin, buddy, I mean, you're going to think what you're going to think. I think if you look at everything that I have said and done since I left the Republican Party 10 years ago now, that would tell you differently. I think anyone who's ever seen me on the Joy Reid show back in the MS days, or talking to folks like you and the Nerd Avengers and Mary Trump, and who have worked with me professionally in any way, would know that I just call it like I see it. And yes, I am willing to call out the faults and fallacies that I see in my own party, because I want my party to be strong. I want my party to win. I want to dethrone these MAGA morons. And if anyone thinks that I'm a Republican, let me tell you something. I spent the better part of this decade being called a virus by that party. If you think that I would align with those pieces of shit, go fuck yourself.
Well, that was very subtle. Thank you, Kurt. Kurt, shamelessly promote yourself, sir.
So, leaning into my oversight background, working at House Oversight Committee, I started a Substack platform called the Watchdog Report to talk about what oversight really needs to look like, how Democrats can effectively wield it to hold Trump 2.0 accountable if they take back power. We publish stuff every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, I hope you'll check it out.
Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And what's the website?
TheWatchdogReport.substack.com.
So everyone who's watching right now, subscribe to Kurt. Thank you all for watching. For those who joined us a bit late, we talked about Pam Bondi. We talked about the Oversight Committee. We talked about accountability. That led to our conversation about Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzales and this culture of complicity where it's a big club. And Kurt and I shared our thoughts on how, even though the Republican Party is shameless, they're shameless. They're completely vulgarians. These are someone said, Tim Alberta said this yesterday. It was a good, because Tim Alberta is actually a practicing Christian, I think a former Republican. And
Yeah,
he said, Donald Trump was a test of American Christianity, and American Christianity failed.
sure
And
did.
sobering words, right? Because it shows you that the Republican Party, the hypocrisy, right? Just because they're being hypocrite and shameless doesn't mean that you have to be as well just to win.
Mhm.
No, I think people are like, no, we want fighters, we want sincerity, we want authenticity. And yeah, Eric Swalwell might be a governor, but if he's out here allegedly sexually assaulting girls and young women, no, he's not your fighter just because he has a D on it. We have to stand for something better, and we need full transparency, full accountability, and a full cleaning of the house, literally and figuratively. This is Kurt Bardella. He says F you if you still think he's a Trump supporter. He spent the past 10 years proving otherwise. Go subscribe to his Substack, which again is
TheWatchdogReport.substack.com.
And this is the left hook. Everything is free because I'm a terrible capitalist. But if you want to help me, please chime in. It's $5 a month, but it's the lefthook.substack.com/special. It's $3.75 a month forever. So use the link. You can pay for 80% of 1 gallon of my Honda Odyssey minivan, which will go a long, long way. It'll help me take my kids to school and back, barely. Thank you all for watching. I'll be back with Allison Gill and Jared Gates Sexton later today. It'll be a great show. Everyone else, take care, be kind, inform yourself, and please, oh please, don't be a fascist. Thank you, Kurt.
See you, brother.
Later.